A wonderful evening and welcome to CSN. Well, you've been watching the tributes people have been paying a legend, and that legend is Mahela Jayawardene, and this program is being called Salute Mahela. And well, certainly he deserves all the salutes we can give him and all the accolades, because he's been such a wonderful cricketer, ambassador, a human being and whatnot. Now, you've heard quite a few people, starting from his coaches, his friends, people who played with him, and so many people who know him, including top media men who have been paying tribute to Mahela Jayawardene. Now today we have a very special personality, an international personality who apparently is with us commentating on the current Pakistan series, a former Pakistan captain, well-known opening batsman who doesn't really need any special introduction. And he is Rameez Raja. Good evening,
Roshan,
Rameez.
good evening. How are you?
Lovely to have you on CSN.
Great to be here.
Yeah, Rameez is going to talk about, of course, Mahela Jayawardene. The Mahela Jayawardene he knows and the Mahela Jayawardene he's seen. I don't think Rameez has played with Mahela Jayawardene, but I think he's seen enough to talk about him. And we feel that he's in an excellent position to try and come up with a different view about Mahela Jayawardene and how an outsider, a non-Sri Lankan, would see him and what his views are. Rameez, starting with the fact that Mahela has been a champion batsman for Sri Lanka, 11,000 plus runs in both versions, so many hundreds, records. How would you like to talk of Mahela Jayawardene, the batsman?
An artist, a complete batsman, because he could play spin. He was extraordinarily good against pace bowling also. It was about playing within his limits also. You know, when you've got loads of talent, at times you just do not know where your boundaries are. He marked his boundaries and he operated well within those boundaries, but he was never boring. You know, at times when you know you have to be a little reserved in your approach, you can lose the plot also and become a little dull and boring. But Mahela was so good, because you know the shot that I enjoyed most of Mahela was that cover drive, which he played so elegantly, and also the fact that he kept it very simple. You know, all great players tend to do that. You know, they work extremely hard. They say genius is 99% perspiration, and he worked extremely hard to make it so simple, because you know the way he picked up the bat, the way he stroked the ball, and he was always looking to improve himself. I quite enjoyed his quote. I read in the paper that he felt that he couldn't improve further as a batsman, and the next test match was what? In Sri Lanka, about 10 months away, and so he felt that it was time to go. Now, learning process never stops, but to admit it after scoring 11,000 or over 11,000 test runs just illustrates the makeup of the man, and very humble, you know, very well grounded in a way, you know, well brought up, and played the game in true spirit. So there's so many things to talk about Mahela, but I think runs and the character and the spirit with which he got those runs, and how well he conducted himself in the dressing room and for the opposition also. I mean, it's just been a great, remarkable career.
Yeah, no doubt. I think there is a lot to talk about Mahela Jayawardene, and I don't think a program like this in any way could try and finish off all what he's done and his service to cricket in Sri Lanka. As Rameez said, so many attributes. But we're not talking about Mahela Jayawardene, the batsman. We're trying to understand and maybe try and appreciate what he's been as a batsman in the world scene. Of course, we all talk of Mahela Jayawardene, the legend. He is a Sri Lankan legend. But would you like to, before we go dig deep further as a batsman, would you kind of classify him as a great on the world stage as well?
You see, let's see his contemporaries, Roshan. Let's see who were the greats when he was playing the game, who were outstanding batsmen in the middle order. So if you want to compare it with a Rahul Dravid and a Brian Lara, and a Saurav Ganguly, for example, even a Sachin Tendulkar. You know, Ricky Ponting is not behind these guys, you know, because all these guys had their own special style to impress the fans, and remarkable career figures also. And Mahela clearly fits into the clique, and he was, I guess, different in a way that he had his own style. You know, he was very wristy. He could drive the ball. He could hit a six also. You know, when I compare him to a Rahul Dravid, I see that he's got a brilliant defense. That's why he got all those runs, because you've got to have a strong defensive play. So you can easily compare his technique, say, to a Rahul Dravid. When it comes to hitting a six, you can compare him to a Saurav Ganguly. When it comes to being an artist, you can compare him to a Brian Lara. So you could see all these little facets in his batting that you would want to see in 10 of them together, you know. So he had a bit of a Brian Lara, he had a bit of a Saurav Ganguly, and a bit of a Rahul Dravid, and his straight drive and cover drive had a bit of Sachin Tendulkar. And then he was himself also, you know, imprinted his own stamp of authority on the opposition. And he was a lot of praise for a few bowlers also. I felt that Wasim Akram did give him trouble initially in his career, because he liked to drive the ball outside the off stump. But overall, how he overcame his weaknesses and made them into his strengths. You know, driving is his strength, and it eventually turned out to be that. So I saw a little bit of all these greats in Mahela's batting.
Well, we are paying a great tribute to Mahela Jayawardene, and we call it a salute to Mahela. And in case you haven't heard, Rameez Raja, the well-known Pakistan cricketer captain, is with me in the studio paying his tribute and his salute to Mahela Jayawardene. And also, we've been talking about first Mahela Jayawardene, the batsman, and we tried to compare him with his contemporaries, the players who played during his era in the middle order, and we were trying to identify what a player he was and how good he was, and whether he was a true world legend or whether he was just a Sri Lankan legend. Now, Rameez did sum him up beautifully and did say what his strengths and what his weaknesses were, and you know, how good he was in defense and attack and that kind of thing. Well, Rameez, if we kind of go back on Mahela's career and his life, I'm sure you as a commentator have seen Mahela Jayawardene from his very inception. He made his debut in 1996 in that famous test match where Sri Lanka ran up a massive score, 900 plus runs, and Mahela got a half century. What were your early kind of recall of Mahela Jayawardene when he first came on the scene? You think you can remember him as a youngster?
I do actually. You know, I think that's the year when I actually started doing commentary. 96, 97 was my first stint or first year as a cricket commentator, and straight away you could feel that he's one of those typical Sri Lankan batting prodigies that you come to know. You know, Arvinda de Silva was an icon when I played against Sri Lanka. Arjuna Ranatunga had a different style, feisty and temperamental, yet extremely effective. And here was Mahela, because you knew that when you occupied a position in the Sri Lankan middle order, you had to be extremely good, because that's the history, that's how it's always been done. And there's a rich history of Sri Lankans producing great batting talent. That's why I put them at par with India, because of strong school cricket, which you see in Sri Lanka, and it's a thriving grassroots level industry in a way. So the moment he walked in, you could feel that, you know, he was organized in a way that he liked driving the ball. He was a little loose, as all young cricketers, young batsmen are in their first couple of years, but he was determined to do well and make a name for himself. Yes, not only that test match, but then he also, his first test century was a good one against New Zealand, I believe, 160 odd he got. And then that triple 100, not against Zimbabwe, not against Bangladesh or a minnow, but against South Africa. So, you know, he had arrived. By that time, he had already arrived. And I was just thinking the other day, you know, you are very excited when you get to your first 1,000 runs as a batsman. But then to get to your 2,000, 3,000, 4,000, and by 6,000, I think you're done. You feel that, you know, you've proved everything to the world, there's nothing else to do but go out there and have a blast. But, you know, both Sangha and Mahela, they have this great ability to not really look back at what they've achieved, but to look forward, and that's why they're always looking to improve as batsmen. So yes, I mean, from early days you could feel, you know, the stance was very, very good, and he was well balanced at the crease. He liked to drive the ball, which is great in subcontinent conditions. He was good against spin. You have to be when you occupy number 4, number 5 position. And then he had the pace. You know, he could hit a 6. That's why I always rated Inzamam as Pakistan's best batsman, because he could, I mean, at any given situation, whenever the situation demanded Inzi, he would hit a six and get his team out of trouble. Similarly, Mahela, he knew that, he was a technician, and suddenly he would become a bit of a slogger, a bit of a son of Jayasuriya in approach, and do it so elegantly. So that's why it's such a complete package from very early in his career.
Well, let's move away from Mahela Jayawardene, the batsman, but let's look at batsmen in general. Now, you correctly said, it is a challenge for batsmen to go beyond 6,000 runs because they're so tired.
Sure.
I mean, not just Test cricket, this man has done it in one-day cricket.
Sure.
Now, you have been a batsman. Now, what ticks a batsman, to carry on and do it? What's the factor you think? What's the driving force?
I think you challenge yourself all the time. I think that's why you play this sport. You're competitive. And once you know that you've got the talent and ability, and once you know that you've made it big, then you want to be the best in the business. And so that's another driving force. And then you set yourself small goals. For example, for Mahela, I should imagine captaining Sri Lanka and captaining them well was a great moment and a real challenge for him. And then as a captain, he wanted to be successful as a batsman. So that was another challenge. How to be so good in the field to set a great example. He did that by catching 200 batsmen. So you set yourself little challenges, little goals, little roadblocks that you have to go over. And I think he was very, very good in that because he was realistic, yet he backed himself. He knew that if he got these 5 things right, he could become a legend, an icon, a great cricketer. And there are very few in Test cricket who can command that kind of respect. So in that regard also, I think Mahela has done wonderfully well. While playing the game, especially in his last couple of years, he was hailed as an icon, as a legend. Not only a Sri Lankan great, but a world great. And that's why I think he's been very, very different.
Yeah, no doubt indeed. But something that we need to try and understand is Mahela Jayawardene has not been just a test cricketer. He's also been a great one-day player. He's enjoyed the T20 version of the game. Now, Rameez, you haven't played T20 cricket because it wasn't there during your time. But how is it as a batsman? Is it difficult for great players to adjust from one-day cricket to T20 to Test cricket? And I mean, what kind of process does great players require to keep adjusting and performing?
Roshan, there are only number of players, just a handful of players, who have qualified to play all the 3 formats because it is tough, modulating, evolving, and making sure that your pace is right for all the formats is a difficult thing to do. And I've seen greats to struggle. For example, Rahul Dravid. Now his Test record is phenomenal, but was he rated a good one-day player or a T20 player? I don't think so. Ganguly, a good 50-over batsman. Maybe he was on his way out when the T20 was introduced, but not as great a Test player as a 50-over player. Then maybe for Sehwag, who was brilliant in all the 3 formats.
What about Tendulkar? You think he was good in all?
Tendulkar was good in Test matches. He was good in 50 overs as well, but up to a certain point, and then he lost it. He became just. And when he had players like Sehwag and
Gambhir
and Yuvraj Singh in the team, I think he got a little exposed. But with Mahela, I think that's the other wonderful thing about his career. He fitted in so well with the other youngsters in all the formats that it was no way that he was going to sit out and not play T20 or 50 over, because he could create pace, he could evolve as a T20 player and think differently, produce different shots. And it wasn't cross the bat slogs. It was he just improved on his shot making. And whatever he would play along the ground in Test matches, for example, or in 50 overs cricket, he would just lift the ball in the air. So that was the adjustment that he made, and he made it so well. And probably one of the only few who qualified as a permanent fixture in all the 3 formats, which is saying a lot, Roshan. because I struggled in test matches, whereas I felt 50 overs cricket was a lot easier.
Yeah, you were very good in 50 over cricket.
But then to be good in all three formats and to be legends of the game in almost all the three formats is just simply outstanding.
Let's focus on you, Rameez. Now you came up with the classic situation where you were saying that to perform in all three is not easy. Why do you think you struggled at test cricket and you enjoyed one-day cricket so much?
You see, I felt that there's a lot more pressure on you to be perfect in test matches because...
So is it about your technique or your temperament?
No, I think it's just about the
your
temperament.
Approach, is it?
And,
your general approach?
Approach, your temperament, and that you were tested technically also, temperamentally also. That's why it's so difficult to be a great test player, where you can get away with a lot of ordinary stuff in 50 overs cricket. For example, an edge in test matches is caught invariably, whereas an edge in 50 overs cricket fetches you a boundary. So I mean, that kind of stuff. And also I think you felt a little relaxed also. At times players feel relaxed when they're playing test cricket, whereas they get uptight when they're 50 overs cricket because there's more pressure on you. I felt differently. I felt that I was less under pressure because I used to open the innings, and so I had plenty of time to create an innings or create pace to my innings and all that. But you look at Mahela and you straight away feel how gifted he was, because people have tried it over and over again, time in and time out, years in and years out, to be complete a three-dimensional package. But there was only Mahela who could do it.
In case you didn't catch those great tributes paid by some of our commentators and some players of yesteryear, we can now watch it. All of us did say what we felt about Mahela Jayawardene and our thoughts as to why he was so special.
Amazing person, one of those who reads the game really well, and I haven't seen anyone like him. He just trusts his skill, he goes out there and plays his game, plays special knocks for that reason. When the going gets tough, the tough gets going.
He's going to leave a huge void, a vacuum that's going to be, I don't think that it can be filled in the same manner. We'll get other players, but I don't think they'll be of that particular stature. He's been a great individual, fantastic leader, and one of the best teammates and team men.
As a player, he did it best all the time, and as a captain, he did his best all the time. So I think both he did it perfectly for me. So I think sometimes some players can't do both, but this is an exceptional player and did both really well.
Superstar, legend, great on the front foot, great on the back foot, great against spin, great against quicks, fit, terrific, and more importantly, just a fantastic ripper bloke.
I think a lot of viewers of Test cricket, they will be miss him because of his achievements and his focus to the game, and especially his performance to the cricket and for his country. It was very fantastic.
He's one of the best ever produced in Sri Lanka, and I think Sri Lanka is going to lose his services for country. And one of the leaders in Sri Lanka, great ambassador, and he has given a lot for Sri Lanka cricket.
To me, the legacy that Mahela Jayawardene would leave for all the young cricketers of Sri Lanka in the years to come is that apart from all his career figures, he has turned out to be a humble, wonderful, outstanding human being. And I think that is really what the young cricketers of Sri Lanka would look to him as a role model for.
He's been a pillar of strength for us and for the team, and I think the youngsters learn so much from him, by looking at him, by talking to him, and he's been unbelievable to us team.
Well, those are some of the tributes paid by the commentators, his fellow players, former players, and whatnot. And I'm sure if we speak to more people, we'll have similar or different sentiments. But I can tell you one thing, that all of them will be talking about what he's been and what he's contributed to the game and how great a cricketer he is as far as Sri Lanka is concerned. Now, Rameez, first and foremost, before we carry on this chat, surprised at the tributes? You were there. I mean, we all paid him a tribute. Are you surprised at the tributes he's getting, or
Not at
it's
all,
just a
Roshan.
confirmation of what you think?
Of course, it's a confirmation of how good a player he has been, and it's good. You always want to listen to the guys who've played with you or who've commented on your outstanding innings, what the public thinks of you and all that. So I mean, in that regard, I think if I were in his place, in his shoes, I would have enjoyed this.
No doubt, indeed. I mean, I can understand how great he feels, because when he was going off, when he was given that send-off, even His Excellency the President of the country had time to come and hand over a special memento to him, which I'm sure is a very rare occasion. Of course, Muralidharan, when he retired in Gaul, he was given that special thing, and now Mahela Jayawardene. But let's try and talk on what Mahela's base was and what his foundation was and why he became such a good cricketer. Now, I know you're somebody who admires and who always thinks a lot about our school system. Do you think that a player like Mahela Jayawardene's emergence and his kind of quality is an attribute to our school system?
Oh, absolutely. There's no doubt in my mind, because I also happen to come from the same or similar environment, because the school that I went to had a great, rich sporting environment. And we would wait for our studies to be over so that we could go out and start our sports activities at around 2:33 p.m. in the afternoon. But we do not obviously have the kind of structure that is prevalent, that is being given to some of the younger students here through school cricket. So I was just wondering, I'd like to share your opinion on why is it such a progressive structure that you just can't fail producing batsmen, especially.
Yeah, I mean, before we digress, what's the situation in Pakistan? You don't have inter-school fixtures at all?
No. They used to be, but not anymore, because I think we've been big on privatization, and privatization has absolutely killed the sporting culture. Now, most of the schools are housed in a sort of a living neighborhood,
right,
and they do not have playing fields, and so I think that has killed the sporting culture to a certain degree. Yes, you'll get an HSN college from where I graduated, and you'll have other prominent schools, but they're a handful. The entire new generation is being brought up on laptops and computers and iPhones and all that kind of stuff, and watching cricket, not playing it, but watching cricket. And that's why I'm so jealous of your school structure and your school system. And because we've now got a new management at the PCB, and I know Mr. Shahryar Khan, who's the new chairman of the cricket board, well, and he's keen to improve the school structure. So my suggestion to him when I go back to Lahore is to have a look at the Sri Lankan school structure and try to replicate it, because you guys have not gone wrong at all, because generations after generations, right from Ranjit Fernando, right from his era of the 70s, or even before, up till now, to Arjuna Ranatunga and to Arvinda De Silva. I remember coming here as an under-19 player, and even though the bowling wasn't great, the Sri Lankan bowling, but batting was just impregnable to breach at that level in those years, and it has not stopped. So what is the secret of success? Of course, I mean, it's got to be coaching and interest of the coaches, and how to guide these youngsters, lead them into action at such a young age.
Well, actually, if you look at our secret, Sri Lankan secret, now Mahela Jayawardene is a product of that system, because he did play first 11 cricket at the age of 14, he did play under 19. The secret is the strong rivalry schools have. Now, there are big matches now, you'll be surprised, where we have greater crowd interest and attendance at a big match. Now, if you take a Royal Thopian and Nalanda, Josephine Pete Wright, Trinity Anthonian, Richmond Mahinda, I mean, you can go on Thurston, Isipatana, you'll have massive crowds of old boys coming and watching. And also, Rameez, the fact that the role models, the school kids want to emulate. Now, you saw the special tent the old Nalandians had. Now, that's because they think so high of Mahela.
Absolutely.
And all those young guys who watched Mahela playing will want to be a Mahela Jayawardene.
Sure, absolutely.
And also the school structure in Sri Lanka, free education. So we have so many schools around the country that plays cricket, and then it's played at district level, then it comes into provincial level school, and then good coaching. So, and of course the natural talent.
Sure.
Now, I like to ask you, we're talking Mahela Jayawardene, but we've discussed a lot, but then just stemming a little bit into your area, how does Pakistan pick up talent and how do they come through the system?
Well, it is.
How did you come through? Now, if you don't have school cricket.
You see, I played school cricket.
You did?
I did. I did. But it wasn't inter-school structure that we had, I qualified through. But it was like we had the boards tournament, which was like your A levels.
Okay.
So
is it an age group tournament that you
No,
have?
it's the class group tournament.
Okay.
So I played that, then I got to play the under-19s, because our under-19 thankfully is still robust and it is still throwing players of class and of raw talent. I think they get lost when they qualify for first-class cricket. I think that is where we get a hit, because there's a lot of confusion. We have regional base and we have departmental base. So
what is a departmental
So
base?
departmental base would be, Roshan, like a bank participating in first-class cricket, or an airline participating in first-class cricket. And regional base would be Lahore, Karachi, and all that.
Sure.
And so when I was at the cricket board, I was very keen to just do away with the departmental cricket of first-class structure and just side and promote the regional base. So Lahore versus Karachi, I felt, had more teeth. It had more venom, it had more attraction to invite more eyeballs at our first-class matches. And it meant a lot of sense, because, city-based cricket would involve a lot of interest, would generate a lot of interest, but obviously over the years that's diluted, and that is where I think we're getting a hit. The moment we improve our first-class cricket, the moment we improve our club cricket, I think that is when we'll achieve something like Sri Lanka, especially in the batting area. Because if you can't replace a 40-year-old misbah Haq, if you recalled Yunus Khan, who is 37 for 50 overs cricket, no doubt about the caliber of these two players. They've done so well for Pakistan over the years, but it also portrays Pakistan batting talent in a negative way.
Sure.
That we're not having enough young talent to come through the ranks to replace a 37-year-old and a 40-year-old.
Now I like to try and pick Rameez's brain on captaining a side and also being a key player, and what kind of pressures would really involve in a job like that. Now Rameez, I know you're quite qualified to talk about this, because you captained Pakistan, and I think you also opened, didn't you, when you captained Pakistan. Now first and foremost, just tell me, does a batsman who bats in a place of importance, the top 4-5, enjoy the extra responsibility, or is it a natural thing?
I think it gets the best out of you, Roshan, because you've got to be good at it now. So there's extra responsibility. I think majority of captains improve their own set of skills. Otherwise, they know they won't get the kind of respect in the dressing room that they're due. But leaders got to sacrifice a lot of things. He's got to set an example. At times he doesn't want to, but he has to. He has to curb unnecessary comments, or giving unnecessary comments, which in normal circumstances he wouldn't be afraid to let go. But in a way, I think it trains you, it disciplines you to be a good person also, because you become selfless, you become positive, you become fearless, and you're not afraid to tell the truth. I think the best thing that I learned about captaincy was that I was ruthlessly honest about people. In
players
the
in your team?
Absolutely. I mean, when they did well, because you see, Roshan, your own position is not challenged as a captain, so you can be fearless. And if you have the backing of the board, then it's a lot easier job than people tend to think or tend to make of it. But you've got to have temperament to be a captain. And I think there are no born captains.
Okay.
You learn the art.
So you don't think leaders are born, but
no,
they're
I
made?
don't think so. I don't
they're
think
made.
So. They're made. They're made because you learn from experience. So it's like going to a battle, for example. You know, and so when you
just to stop you there, I mean, how would you? Of course, we're talking Mahela Jayawardene, but we want to talk about his captaincy. But how would you then think of a man like Mike Braley? You think he was also a made captain?
No, Mike Braley was a technician, but you know, he had a very good team, and he must have led his, and he did lead Middlesex in county cricket for so many years. So you become good at it. First year of a captain is usually not that great, but it's like sending a new rookie in the international circuit. And he can be successful, he can absolutely lose it also, but there are chances that he won't be straight away a huge success, because you've got to go through the mill, and then the second and third years become that much more interesting and more rewarding for you. Similarly, a captain goes through hell in the first year, because he's trying to understand, he's trying to map the team environment, the culture, he's trying to inculcate, you know, new ideology, he's trying to create a new culture, he's trying to understand his fellow cricketers. His friends suddenly become a lot more serious because he's challenging them in a different way, and they say, what's wrong with this guy? Ever since becoming a captain, he's changed. And so it's an uneasy period, and then they get to know you, because they feel that you're going to be a permanent fixture, and you've got to get along with the captain. And you know, he's not a bad guy at all, because paramount in his mind, in his heart, is the well-being of the cricket team, and winning is the most important thing, irrespective of what the individuals do. And I think that is where Mahela was outstanding. I think he created a new culture, and he was innovative also, and he was a thinking captain. And he occupied the most sensitive position in the field, first slip. So he could see the action from there.
Do you think, now some people tend to think mid-off is the place for the captain. Do you think
I
there's
think
a cutter?
You can change.
Okay.
But you know, ideally speaking, if you're a good slip catcher, then you shouldn't change.
Why does it go there?
Yeah, absolutely, because then you're contributing to the field also. But the way he handled individuals, you know, all his players, you listen to Angelo Matthews, and he talks about Mahela being such a great man manager, and you have to do that. In fact, I advocated the case, this man management skill or the learning process, to the Pakistan Cricket Board also, because I said, whosoever you make the captain, and we were struggling at one time to get the right man for this important job. I said, you send him to a management school, and just let him understand the value of being a good man manager. And there's a process how you can go about it. But I think the best way is really to be a sportsman, and you know, just go out there and be expressive.
Learn on the job.
Learn on the job, actually. And Mahela was very good at it.
Yeah, what would you kind of identify as his strong points when he led Sri Lanka?
I think he worked well with his major match winners. You know, when you're a captain, when you're deciding the playing 11, you always first pick your match winners. There may be 1, 2 or 3. So you write their names first of all. And even though you've had major breakups with them, major arguments with them, yet you've got to work with these guys, because these guys are going to win you matches, and that cannot be bad. So you put their names there, and then you make the 11 around them. At times when you're not a good man manager, you try to get rid of the big names so that you can have an easy life.
Threat, then.
Yeah, easy life in the dressing room, even at the cost of winning. But I felt Mahela worked really well with Muralidharan. His other asset was that he created new talent. He backed certain players, a bit like Saurav Ganguly for India, for example, or MS Dhoni is doing it for India. I thought Mahela worked on those lines. He got the match winners in first, and then he got the young blood in whom he could trust, and he identified talent really well. I think that's the other thing that he did so well. Because if you get it wrong, then you've had it, because your years of investment are wasted. And the other thing that he has actually mentioned in his interviews, that he is called spade a spade, and it shows in the work.
Right. So very in short, we almost at the end of our program. What would you remember Mahela Jayawardene as?
As a complete artist. As a complete artist, as someone who gave us so much of joy. I'll always remember his cover drive. I'll always remember his use of the footwork. And I'll always remember his slip catching. And the smile and what he brought to the game. A family man, well-grounded, a great guy, full stop. I've had the pleasure of having dinner with him once or twice. A great family, great guy. And I think he'd be very useful for cricket committees in the world because he's got a grasp of the game and he'd contribute really handsomely.
Well, indeed, no doubt. We've been talking about a legend and we've been trying to explain to you what we thought about Mahela Jayawardene. And of course, you do know what a great player he is. Rameez Raja took time off to come and express his views. Thank you so much, Rameez, for joining us. It was a great privilege having you and also listening to you.
Thank you so
and we do appreciate, I'm sure all our viewers will appreciate your thoughts about Mahela Jayawardene. Well, it's time for us to go. Thank you for being in our company, but in your case, don't go away because we got more people coming in to pay their tributes to Mahela Jayawardene. And now I've been told the next one coming up is two legends themselves, Sanat Jayasuriya and Lasith Malinga. So stay with us. We're going to take a break, and when you come back, you'll have them. Until then, until we see you again sometime, it's goodbye.